Now, let me ask you guys this, because this actually wasn't going to be part of any kind of topic, but it just kind of dawned on me while we were having this conversation.
Oh, go ahead.
That, well, Disney World just introduced the Magic Mobile as far as being able to access into the parks with it's basically everything on your phone, and you don't even have to unlock your phone. You could basically just put your phone up to the scanner, and it scans you, and
Okay.
then they also started the facial recognition in order to be able to get into the parks as well. They just started that as far as like a testing. Did
Yeah.
Disneyland say anything of starting any kind of that technological state to actually get into the parks itself, or are they just doing the basic sort of how they've been entering guests into the parks?
Go ahead, Orange Grove. Have you heard anything?
I personally have not heard anything in regards to the what was it, like the biometric, the facial scans that they're
Yeah,
doing?
they're doing biometric scanning, facial recognition technology to actually get into the parks as a test. It's something that you opt into, and it's only for a small period of time. I haven't heard anything like that happening for Disneyland. I've been kind of looking into it myself. I know this is kind of interesting because the technological infrastructure for Disneyland is woefully short. I mean, Disneyland can do a lot of these things quite well because they spent over $1 billion getting magic bands put in there, and a lot of the technological infrastructure required for those things. So to kind of use that as kind of a base is a lot easier said than done in a place like Walt Disney World, or it's a much easier task to perform in Walt Disney World than it is in Disneyland, which is why Disneyland's kind of slow rolling a lot of that stuff. Also, there are some operational problems in comparison. Because of the local demographic, it's a little bit different than out in Walt Disney World. That might change, but I haven't heard of anything like that. I would like for them to implement, if we're going to do temperature checks, hey, can we get some of the baggage scanning options that Walt Disney World has and some other venues? I'd like that. Facial recognition, there are pros and cons to that prospect, but the phones in particular, the method you describe, it sounds like they might be using NFC technology, and I know the Magic Bands themselves were kind of a stopgap, right? Not everybody had smartphones at the time they were implemented, but so how can we give people a device that would allow some of these technologies to actually sync up with them and track them and so forth? And the Magic Bands was that. And now that the proliferation of smartphone technology, how many people have them and so forth, it's like, okay, well, we can kind of transition away from Magic Bands, use a phone-based system, and conceivably everybody can do it, and there's no barrier to entry at this point. So I think you're going to start seeing that transition take place, not only in Walt Disney World, but because Disneyland didn't have to go through a Magic Band period, I think you're going to start to see that be adopted relatively quickly.
Yeah, and Disneyland has kind of dipped their toe into that whole mobile thing with the mobile ordering. That was is available, and you can even use your app to get it's like your annual pass, your barcode is on the app. They can scan the phone instead of your physical. So they've dipped their toe into it. So like Dre was saying,
Max Pass reservations.
What was that? I'm sorry.
Oh, Max Pass reservations.
And Max Pass reservations, which I love Max Pass, by the way. God bless
Absolutely.
Max Pass.
Yeah.
I hope it sticks around. I really do.
That's the one thing that I could say I wish Walt Disney World would take from Disneyland to implement it into the resort, because the Fast Pass Plus system at Walt Disney World is okay, but I would so much prefer Max Pass. It works so much better. It's almost like they just implement the traditional Fast Pass system of how it started, and they just digitalized it right onto your phone. That's basically what Max Pass is for me anyways.
Yeah, it's a fantastic little service. I love it.
And as when they released some of the options for annual passes, you saw the valuation they placed on it. I mean, it was, it is something that they have seen as being something that's really raises the guest experience quite highly when people opt into it and use it and use it. And it's not going away for sure. I think they've already confirmed that it is coming back, but right now, with such limited capacity, there's no real use for it out the gate.
All right, cool. So I think now we should kind of get into the big elephant in the room, the coup de grace of everything that I think, honestly, that no one expected. This kind of came out of left field for everyone, and I had to go on several different sources of websites to make sure that I was understanding what I was seeing. And sure enough, it was actually true that Disneyland, and I'm going to speak from the founder of the company, itself, Walt Disney, that Disneyland will never be completed as long as there's imagination left in the world. And it's this now with Disneyland Forward. I have done a video with my good friend Holly, who's part of the Grand Circle Tour podcast, and we were more so just talking about just the introduction of all this, but we really didn't get too much in depth of what it was about, because I just wanted to get as much information out as it came along to me. So, but I want to clarify if I haven't mentioned it in my previous video, but here, this is not necessarily a third gate for Disneyland. This concept is not even just something that is saying, okay, this is exactly what it's going to look like. I mean, we can all agree that any concept art that comes out of Disney is not even necessarily to say, oh, that's exactly what it's going to look like. It could change from minute to minute. But what this is more primarily of Disney's proposal to the city of Anaheim to basically say to kind of change the zoning so they could make something in the future of what this could potentially look like. And I think just with everything that's been going on as far as like with the shutdown and COVID and what have you, that I think that Disney had found themselves in a position to say, if we're going to pitch this, we better do it now, because this is the best time to do it. What were your initial thoughts? Because unfortunately, I wasn't able to join your conversation. I wanted to so bad. But what were your initial thoughts when you first saw this pop up?
Go ahead, Vash. You go first.
Okay. I was like, what? It's. It is. You see that big splash of concept art, especially on the website right there, and you just go, "Wow!" I mean, that is quite something. But I think the main takeaway is imagine the possibilities, right? You see it right there in the corner, and it is there for a reason. This is just showing, hey, look, if we were to get a rezoning of the items that were specified in the EIR report done back in the 1990s, which is very inflexible. If we were to get a modification of that, an alteration of that, this is what we could do potentially. And it's just showing, hey, look, there is growth to be had in Disneyland Resort, but that's really only going to come from a rezoning as specified by Disney, which isn't consistent with what the EIR report actually says and dictates they can do with the property. So I think that's really important. It's just saying, hey, look, we have concepts that we're rolling out in other theme parks, and given their size and scale, those ideas could fit within these boundaries. But we just have to be freed up in order to do that. So I think it's really important. Let's not get carried away with the actual concepts that we see. It really is the possibilities, the kind of size and scale that Disney has available still left at the Disneyland Resort with the properties they already own.
Right. No, yeah, Dre hit the nail on the head. That's exactly what it is. It's about possibilities. This artwork, fans shouldn't get married or too attached to these particular pieces of art, because I think they really mean next to nothing. Like he said, this is really about selling the idea of the rezoning, to the city of Anaheim. And I think that's why you see a lot of this mixed stuff. Like in this art here, you see like the hotels with shopping, dining, theme park. It's all kind of mixed in and woven together very much intentionally, because they're going for multi-use zoning. And that's what they're trying to get the city of Anaheim to get on board with. So in order to do that, they're trying to sell this whole concept of this mixed use property. And I don't necessarily think that is exactly what we're going to get in the final product. Like some of these hotels, these park areas weave in and out of, I'm not sure they're going to do that. I think it's mostly just for, the zoning issue. So we'll see though. We'll see,
Well, let me ask you this, because when I first looked at this concept art, what it actually kind of reminded me of was of how Disney is creating their international parks. And believe it or not, I can't believe I'm saying it, and how Universal is creating Epic Universe, where they're incorporating a hotel mixed in with their parks. And it just kind of gave me that idea that if they were to hypothetically divide this into sections based on where the parks are already located, where the east side of what we're looking at would be for Disneyland and the west side would be for DCA, that you would then have Disneyland Hotel representing the Disneyland side, and then you would have the Paradise Pier Hotel representing DCA.
Right.
Yeah, I think that's accurate. And as Orange Grove and I had discussed, I think a lot of the concepts that you see, and I think you touch on it, I think a lot of the concepts that will be coming out might be integrating hotel or resort designs with theme park spaces, very similarly to Disneyland Paris, Tokyo Disney Seas, even in some ways how California Adventure is right now as it butts up against the Grand Californian. So I think to leverage the remaining space that they have, and it's quite small, to maximize and to efficiently use that space and saturate it as much as possible. I think we are going to see that. I think we are going to see a type of Westcott integration with theme park spaces and resort hotels in a similar fashion, like I'd outlined there. Maybe the first 4 floors of any given structure be dedicated to just theme park space, attractions, and so forth, and floors 5 through 10, or however tall these buildings might be hotel room inventory.
So now, speaking hypothetically, that if they were to keep this kind of concept where you can enter through Disneyland or through DCA, and they have a bridge that goes over to this area, I'm assuming that would be included with your park ticket if you enter Disneyland or DCA, and they would have it kind of blocked off so you can't cross paths unless you would have like a park hopper sort of notion.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, this would definitely be you would be required. Like, you couldn't go from the Disneyland section to the DCA section without having a park hopper. It's all going to be blocked off, and the same rules would apply as they do now. I think essentially, where they're 2 separate parks, even though they butt up against each other in this art. I think that you wouldn't be able to just freely go back and forth without having that park hopper.
Yeah, they would be parts of the 2 existing gates as they exist, and if in fact they do have entrances and exits from those ends, you would need a park hopper to get on the other side. I do believe that.
And how creative that would be. I mean, despite of having like the non-blessing of size as well Disney World has, but to integrate a type of way that they can integrate more attractions and more entertainment and more dining and more shopping, that literally it's expanding the park but kind of leaving the originality to it, where they don't have to take something out to re-put something back in. They're expanding it, and the way that they're doing it is just, I think that if it were to come to fruition, that this is how it's going to happen, this would be very interesting to see how, because it looks phenomenal on paper. So to actually see it in person, I think that would be awesome.
And George, you mentioned like how like we don't really have the blessing of size like in Florida does. But I think that you're right. But I think that it has actually, in a lot of ways, it's kind of forced the Imagineers to get really, really creative. Like one example I think would be Galaxy's Edge. When they first announced Batu would be behind Frontierland, I was like, ooh, that's terrible. Because in my head, all I was thinking about was like Star Tours, like aesthetically, right? And how is that like technologically based looking land going to fit behind the Rivers of America? But they very creatively wove it into this natural environment because they were tied on that space. And like to your point, you said like how creative this whole like concept is. I think it's kind of cool. It forces these Imagineers to really kind of think outside that box and do stuff that maybe, they wouldn't otherwise do because they're forced into it. I mean, even Haunted Mansion, was kind of that whole stretching room was done kind of out of necessity to get people underground and outside that berm. Some of the coolest stuff that's come about is the Imagineers' creativity in working around that space issue,
Fantastic example, really. I mean, you hit it right on the head. Haunted Mansion was born out of necessity and not really, complete creative freedom. And I think some of those aspects are some of the reasons why we all love Disneyland so much. It just is, hey, look, this is the requirement that you have for a space, and you have to meet it. And some of those things are really great. They have had to locate a lot of on-site infrastructure, a lot of on-site items that guests don't have access to off-site to make maximum use of these spaces, but they have done it, extremely well given the circumstances. And if a meaningful expansion is to take place, it will probably take place in this form. You mentioned how you could have entrances and exits on this side of the resort on this stretch here, and I think the reason for that is one of the things that maybe doomed the Country Bears, as we've touched on in previous streams here, is just how far these elements are, and right. There is some belief that Galaxy's Edge is maybe it underperformed because it is at the very back of the park, and I think you get around what would be really, really bad issues if in fact these aren't if in fact these are as far as they would be. You get around that by actually having access points on that side, and you can do stuff where resort guests can go straight from the rooms down to these new attractions. I think it's phenomenal.
Yeah, that's brilliant. It's absolutely brilliant.
Now, on a type of like with the city of Anaheim and Disneyland and everything, that when Disney announced this as a proposal, it's sort of kind of giving the city of Anaheim that notion of saying, hey, we're looking to do this. Can we change this? And I believe, correct me if I'm wrong, that this time, as how they were for the proposed with the hotel that they were supposed to build and the Gateway project, that they're not asking for any money from the city of Anaheim. This is strictly Disney proposing this, coming with their own money. And I think if that is correct, I think that now changes the gameplay, so to speak, because now you have these two entities of Disney and the city of Anaheim now begging for people, to bring in revenue. That I think this is the best time for them to do it. Because I'm not sure, Vash, if I have this correctly, that I heard that Disney had taken out a $210 million financial loan during the time of the shutdown from being closed down for over a year. And this is also included, I think, with a lot of the businesses around in that area. And now they have to pay that back, so to speak. So now with everything reopening and now this proposed change, could this now show that the city of Anaheim may have a change of heart to say, let's give them the zoning?
I don't know about the size of the loans taken out as far as Disney's concerned, and I don't know if they I'm not sure if they delineate between geographical areas in terms of whatever loans they do take out. I know they did take out. I mean, millions of dollars would be low. I heard it was billions, and I heard it was to pay off debts,
Yeah.
to pay off, because they still have to pay interest on their debt for the Fox acquisition and a couple of other things. So I'm not sure on that front. I know that the city of Anaheim itself is about $100 to $200 million in debt themselves. So I mean, Anaheim's hurting right now, and Disney understands the vulnerability of that situation, and they're looking to capitalize on it, obviously. Now, they're not saying they want any tax incentives or tax breaks for the rezoning itself, but I think it would be naive to say that they don't want some kind of break later down the line when the actual investment comes. This is just a zoning issue right now, and it would make sense that they don't want tax breaks. But again, I mean, look at the Disneyland, the hotel concept that was shelved. That was shelved over tax issues because it just became economically unfeasible to actually do it without them. So I think that's coming. It's just we'll see.
And those
I am glad that they shelved that concept because I don't know about you guys, but I wasn't a fan of that hotel being there. It was a complete eyesore of.
Not the greatest architectural work by Imagineering. Go ahead, Orange Grove.
Oh yeah. I completely agree. It is an eyesore. And actually, Dre, we talked about this on my channel the other day. How we wanted the like the Grand Floridian type of hotel somehow integrated into the resort, and how it would fit so perfectly with like DCA and stuff.
Yeah,
that would be fantastic. Something like that would be beautiful. But yeah, that concept, that fourth hotel was not. It was okay. They were going for like a mid-century thing, but it never really fleshed out well.
I just think there's just a lot of that in Anaheim already, and I think they could do something truly unique. You see some of the concepts internationally of what they've done, or even in Walt Disney World, and it's just, wow, really? We get the stripped down, minimalistic, mid-century modern design again? It's like, come on, we can be a little bit more imaginative, a little bit more timeless with our resort hotel designs than that.
Well, and that's one of the issues that I have with like the current art, which I know is kind of, just it doesn't really mean much. But if they do that, where they incorporate, say, the Disneyland Hotel into like that theme park expansion, oh man, the Disneyland Hotel is pretty ugly. These big blue box towers. I would hope they would do something with that, because you would undoubtedly see that in the park. You know what I'm saying?
There was a concept to redo each tower one by one, but they just couldn't handle a loss of inventory on that scale. I did hear another concept where it was, okay, well, let's make a Tomorrowland tower how we want to make it, and then with that new added inventory, we can take these towers down and redo them individually. To kind of maintain the level of resort inventory or the hotel room inventory that they have.
Now, they are making a tower for DVC for the Disneyland Hotel, correct?
Yes,
they are correct, but that's just for DVC inventory. Right. That doesn't affect hotel room inventory, which they also desperately need.
But that also would then fall into the category as far as like in that area, it would be implemented where if they were to add attractions or what have you, DVC would still be a part of that area.
Absolutely, 100%. That DVC tower is coming. It's already been approved, and if anything, it would be integrated among these concepts when they do get approved.
Okay, cool. And then kind of going back as on the website of how it shows as we were scrolling down, which I find it very interesting because even though that Disney didn't really confirm anything, but they didn't deny, they're just kind of giving like an idea as to say, what could possibly go in there. So it's kind of like giving us fans the hype. And I think especially with Disneyland, and not to get like too political again of what I was saying, but fans were really in an uproar when Disneyland would not reopen. And they had those diehard Disney fans out there with the signs, wanting Disneyland to open. So I think to now integrate a more positive aspect for us fans to say, hey, if the city of Anaheim is on our side and they grant us, these approvals of the zoning and what have you, this is what you can have, with just one click of a finger, this can be yours.
This was, yeah,
these infomercials.
No, totally. This was definitely a PR push. It was a two-pronged PR push, one directed at the city of Anaheim and one directed at the general public. It's not a coincidence that all these, if you look at your Tangled, Frozen, some of their biggest brands were thrown in here, because it's like they're trying to tell the public, hey, look, you could have all this. They want to apply that pressure to the city. If you get people excited about it, people talking about it, the city is sort of kind of backed up against the corner, and they got to approve it. There's too much demand for it.
Absolutely, 100%. This is all a play to get popular support from the actual city themselves, and to go on a two-sided front there, where you have all these concepts saying, hey, look, if you want it, you just have to approve it, and so forth. You mentioned goodwill and good vibes going out to the fans with the opening and so forth, going from those days of when they were closed. Just wait until the reservation system gets kicked online and find out how many people can actually go.
Yes, absolutely.
That aspect of it, Dre, is already stressing me. Like I'm so stressed out about that prospect, and just wait till they finally roll out their annual pass program. Trying to get one of those.
Oh boy, that's gonna be interesting. I know a lot of vloggers over there in Walt Disney World just got taken out for their entire stay that they're there, simply because it was all taken up by spring breakers.
And
they just don't have reservations.
And you could actually see it when you go on YouTube and you watch a lot of the vloggers there. You can see a lot of their videos, and nothing against them, but it's like, I don't want to say the quality went down, but it's like they were just trying to have fill-ins of saying, oh yeah, we're going here at Disney Springs, or we're investigating this hotel. Like, they were just trying to find something because they could not literally get any reservations for the parks.
Oh yeah, you see, I mean, they go to all these auxiliary parks, Tampa Bay Busch Gardens, SeaWorld, Orlando, Universal, just trying to kind of fill themselves out because they just cannot get reservations in there. And you look at Disney Springs, you mentioned it, and that place has multi-hour lines just to get in, because if you want to go and experience some form of Disney entertainment, that's really it. That's really, if you don't have a reservation, that's the only place you can really go outside of the resort hotels themselves.
I can't recall the name of the place at Disney Springs. A 14-hour wait to get donuts.
Gideon's Bakery.
To get donuts. I mean, 14 hours. It's like...
I don't know. Gideon's Bakery to get cookies. That's how long the wait was. I mean, it was 14 hours. And... that's not a great experience for anybody, but that just tells you, if I can't go in the parks, I'm gonna get my Disney fix some other way.
Yeah,
it's wild. I've never been, like, a lot of people are drawn to that. Like that first kind of like the be first thing. Man, it doesn't appeal to me at all. It seems like so much stress. I'd rather just wait. They're not going anywhere, and then go when it's less crowded and actually enjoy it. And it's crazy. 14 hours, nothing.
14 hours.
That's crazy. That's crazy.
So with Disneyland reopening on April 30th, are you guys gonna kind of sit back and wait and let them hash out the kinks, or are you gonna be trying one of those first ones to get through the gates?
So I can't go because I'm in Arizona.
Oh, that's right.
A California resident.
Right.
Yeah. So. Yeah, so I'm
and I are going to be MIA for a while.
Exactly. Hey, Orange Grove, do you have any context into how you can get a California ID? I'm just asking. Who would I have to talk to if, let's say, my friend wanted to do that? I don't know. For example.
I know a guy who knows a guy. I'll have him contact.
Exactly.
But I mean, I'm not gonna go. I'll be honest with you. I'm not gonna go opening day or opening week. I'm probably gonna try to shoot for maybe May or June. I mean, like I said, I'd rather go when it's a little less hectic and kind of enjoy myself. I don't need to be first to get in or anything like that. I just wanted to enjoy myself and spend time with family and friends. That's it. So yeah, probably like May, maybe even June, to be honest.
My family has a timeshare scheduled for September, so that's probably. I mean, I'm hoping conditions actually change to where I can actually go into these parks around that time. I mean, hopefully, but I mean, if I was in California, I think I would wait a little bit too. I don't think I would be one of the first ones to go in because, all these cast members are agreeing they're going to have a period in which they get kind of used to the operating procedures and so forth. And it's going to be, I would imagine it being rough the first couple of days. It's interesting. When a new attraction opens, I'm like, okay, we got to go. Like, we have to kind of see it because, you have technological things that maybe don't work on, how they did opening week as they did, after that. You have operational changes that change up attractions. But I will say, when Rise actually opened, I pushed the family. Hey, look, let's go out there. Let's see it. Even though we had a trip scheduled later that year. And sure enough, I was able to get everybody together, go down and see it. And weeks later, the park's closed for over a year. So I'm in that instance, it actually worked out.